Are you looking for a new whiskey adventure? Then climb in and buckle up. Get ready for one hell of a ride on the Whiskey Trip podcast with your host, Big Chief. Join in as he and his guests explore whiskey and dive into whiskey stories from around the world. Now here's your host, Big Chief.
Hey, it's old Big Chief, and yeah, you're taking another ride on a whiskey trip. And listeners, do I have a story for you today? It's a story of sacrifice. It's a story of freedom. It's a story of patriotism. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Four Branches Bourbon. Yeah, born of service, born of that sacrifice, born from a legendary military careers of guys that know what it takes to keep freedom free. So with me, I've got three of the founders for Four Branches Bourbon. Gentlemen, welcome to the Whiskey Trip, my friends.
Thanks, Big Chief.
Thank you, Big Chief.
So with me, I got Rick, Mike, and Harold with me. And what you guys are representing the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps. And some of the CIA as well in one of you. But what some decorated careers. I read your guys' bios and stuff. I've had some of your whiskey before at some events and stuff, but I'm excited here today because you guys sent me some. I'm going to sip with it with you guys. But one of you take me through what's in my glass right now. I got the Four Branches Bourbon Founders Blend in here.
Mike, you want to take him through it?
I'll jump in there on that one, Big Chief. So the Founders Blend was our first one to come out of the bottle. So what we do here is we take anywhere between 4.5 to almost 8 year bourbon and we blend it to come up with a 4 grain. As you know, your bourbon's less than probably 5% of 4 grain bourbons. We spent some time at Bardstown Bourbon Company working with Steve Nally and Dan Calloway. Steve, as you may know, was a former master distiller from Maker's Mark for many years and started High West. And we had the privilege to sit with Steve and Dan and Justin Willett to come up with this blend. Chief, we wanted to target something as our first one out that was going to be the most approachable to most people. We could have come out with a high rye and a few people would have liked that, but not everybody. We'd come out with a high proof, again, maybe 4 or 5% would like that, but not everybody. So we wanted to come out with something that people could try, even if you've never had bourbon before, something that's approachable, but yet high enough on the rye that you're drinking bourbon. You get that peppery, that hotness, but also a smoothness in the texture, that mouthfeel. So if you had to put this in a mash bill, it would be something like a 65% corn, a 15 rye, a 10 barley, and a 10 wheat. And we came in at 96 proof. You probably remember back in the day when you got a 4-day weekend, 96-hour pass.
Yeah.
So we went with a proof per hour to come up with 96 proof right there in the middle.
Well, I'll tell you about some of those 4-day passes that I had. And I was stationed in Virginia, and I had an old 73 Ford short bed pickup, and we get that 96 hours pass, and you really get more than that because you'd get off on Thursday afternoon about 3 o'clock, and you'd have to be back for PT in the morning, and you'd have 6 o'clock in the morning. So 24-hour straight drive to Texas to the hill country where I'm from. And I would get in that old pickup and I would drive straight to Texas. I'd get to about Memphis, Tennessee, and I'd have to cross that bridge, across the Mississippi River there, and right across the river into Arkansas as a rest stop. And I'd pull over and get about an hour nap, and then I would keep hauling home. And then I would make it. I'd been 2 days in Texas with some friends, and then I would drive my ass all the way back on Sunday, and I would get just to Virginia about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd do PT, and then I would go up and sleep for an hour, and then I would go to work, and then that next night though I slept pretty damn good. So those 96-hour passes, man, you're bringing back these memories for me. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
That's what's so cool about bourbon, right, Chief? We say sip to remember. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but there's a lot to remember out there, and it's those kinds of things. And there's a lot of symbology in our bourbon and our label, our packaging, and to be honest, it's just for that reason. We want to bring back those good memories. But that's what it's about.
I love the taste on this. It's got a little bit of peanut brittle that my grandmother and my mom would make for me and stuff. That sticky gooiness when it's hardened up and you try to stick your fingers in there and you grab that. Hey, don't grab it yet. And then when it cools though, and you chew on it and stuff and it gets stuck in your teeth, you almost want this to be stuck in your teeth a little bit. That 96 proof, it's better than that 90 proof that everybody's, or over in Europe they're drinking 80 proof. What a beautiful pour. Better than that military special all four of us probably drank a little bit of back in the day.
Gasoline.
2 year.
So tell me the backstory. How do you guys come from military service to thinking, man, we need to start up a whiskey company?
We'll let Rick tell that one. It's his idea, so we're glad to be a part of it. But Rick's got the background story for us.
Yeah, Chief. It never started out that way, right? And I'll preface this. The backstory of all this, the origin is that the Four Branches originally started out what was going to be a tribute to another Marine, a buddy of mine from school, and then another Marine. So I went to, I was an enlisted Marine. I enlisted, and then I went and got my education at Virginia Military Institute. I was there with another cadet. We were there together. We got commissioned, and then, we went to Camp Lejeune together, and we did what young second lieutenants do: run around doing dumb shit and figuring it out. I learned real quick on my first deployment that you don't call a senior chief or a master chief. Learned that real quick as I was on my first ship, bebopping down the hallway, and I thought it'd be real cool. It's like, "Hey, chief." Got about 3 steps before I heard this booming voice say, "Hey, lieutenant, come here." And he quickly educated me on the different stars. 1 star, senior chief. 2 stars, master chief. And he goes, "You see this? This is 1 star. It means I'm a senior chief." So anyway, I have a deep appreciation for the chiefs. But after I did my first 2 tours as a Marine infantry officer, I got out and I got recruited into the CIA. And then I recruited as a contractor, and I recruited Greg, a close friend of mine. And then 20 years ago this year, actually this December, Greg went on his first mission, day 1, night 1 out the wire, and Greg saved everyone's life. But Greg didn't come home. And then I was called to bring Greg back and bring him back to his parents and answer for that mission. And so then that never really left me. And let me back up. Greg was then given a star at the wall at Langley. And that was a big deal as a contractor for the organization that we were, for the unit within the CIA that we were a part of as contractors. He was the first star on that wall. And then since that time, there have been 5 more men. Most of them I served with or knew that were stars on. They're now stars on that wall. I wanted to do something to give back to a phrase that Harold has coined as the unsung shadows. I wanted to recognize those men from that unit, and that's where it really started. And I tell people all the time, if you hear voices, do me a favor. Most of the time, don't listen to them. They're not go the other way. But every now and then, one will ring true. And so, like these guys have heard this 1,000 times. Driving home from the day job, it was a voice clear as day said, "Hey, let's do a barrel of bourbon for the guys in the unit." And I tell people all the time, I thought it'd be so easy. Buy some bottles, get a sticker, make a label, and we'll sell it on Facebook, and the guys will buy it up in a heartbeat. Apparently, Uncle Sam will not let you sell bourbon on Facebook. And I quickly learned that. That's my public service announcement. So then I called Mike. Mike's son and I had actually served together overseas, different units, but same location. And Mike had been a part of the unit that I was a part of just a few years ahead of me. So we all knew the same cast of characters. And I kind of said, "Mike, hey, this is what I want to do." And then we started talking. It didn't take 2 seconds for Mike to say, "Yeah, I'm in. Let's do this." And I love joking, and love my Navy counterpart because we, Marines and Navy and Marines are peas and carrots. One team, one fight. So I joked, well, everybody needs a Navy SEAL. Who can we call? So let's call Harold, because we'd all work together. And then after the three of us got together, we had a mutual friend who said, hey, you should probably call RJ. And it kind of dawned on us at that time when, I'll give it to the Air Force guy. Mike goes, wait a minute, there's a Marine, there's a sailor, I'm the Air Force guy. If we get one more, we got four of us, four branches. So that's when we called RJ. And then quickly, the four of us, assembled to come together and said, okay, let's do this. And then we decided we were going, instead of just doing what I'd call a lack of a better word, a vanity project, right? One barrel, one unit. Let's try and impact the community. And we took a step back, Chief, because once we started putting this all together, we had a few things happen that year. And we realized that we've all lost friends who've, unfortunately, alcohol plays a big part in making a really poor decision, right? And we just didn't know if we wanted to be go into a business and be a part of an industry that has an impact on our brothers and sisters out there to make poor decisions. And then we thought about it. We had what I'll call a crisis of conscience for a little bit. Took a tactical pause, took a knee, assessed the situation, said, no, you know what? The hell with that. None of our careers have ever been typical. We've never backed down from a fight. We've all done hard things. So let's change the message. Let's change the narrative. We're not going to become part of the problem. We're going to become a new solution to the problem, right? And that's kind of where we've got our registered trademarks, our taglines of the four of us here. We all served our country, but I think we can all agree everybody serves a community. So that's when we say serve honorably. Whether you were in the military, law enforcement, or not, everybody serves something. So do so honorably. If you choose to drink, we say drink honorably. That doesn't replace the drink responsibly. What we intended to mean for the veteran, first responder, military community is that look, if you're the last one to come home, don't dishonor the memories of those that didn't come home, right? And more importantly, please don't dishonor your own memory by doing something stupid, because we see the statistics every day, right? And we're hoping that drink honorably gives that man or woman that tactical pause to say, I don't want to dishonor their memories. I need to honor their memories. I'm here. And lastly, the soul of the company is that, look, we've all been down the road of drinking to forget. So now let's sip to remember. And not just remember those that didn't come home, not just remember the Gregs in our lives. Let's remember the wedding. Let's remember the good things. We have a lot of things to be grateful for in this country and in our lives, personally. So let's sip to remember. Four of us sitting here together, first time on this podcast. This is a perfect medium to tell a story and have a sip to remember, right? We just talked about the 96s. So that's really the origin story of how we started and how, I wrangled three close brothers into this business, this adventure, right? It's a journey, it's an adventure. That's for sure.
Well, I love it. I love that story. And I say, hey, let's raise a glass to Greg and all the fallen shipmates out there. I got a shipmate, Dave Smith, to their memory. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I love that you guys did come together like that. And to have four different branches come together, guys that I always say somebody always gives each other shit, but you have somebody from outside the service that never served try to give some military people shit, and everybody kind of turns on them. It's like, hey, knock that shit off.
No.
And then, but we'll give each other shit, and somebody will be like, well, you guys are doing it. Well, yeah, because they understand where I've walked, where I've been, what I've done, and they might have did something totally different. But we probably all might have chewed some of that same dirt, been in those same waves, fought that same fight, that same common goal of, like I said, keeping freedom free. And it takes those sacrifices, not only of the service member, but of that spouse that's left behind and has to deal with that in a new neighborhood, a new city, a new state. I came home today and my wife was like, we're moving my mother-in-law here with us, and we're trying to get her a driver's license here in Texas, and it's a pain in the ass, but we're so geared to that because we've moved every 3 to 4 years over the past 34 years. So we're pretty good at it to where I wouldn't call us experts, but anybody that can move their house and set their household goods up in 3 days and have no boxes, I'd say you're expert at that, at that move. So, but what a fitting tribute to Greg and all those people, all those service members, you know, even CIA, FBI, the sheriff's departments out there, the people that build in their community, they serve their community. What a fitting tribute this is, right?
That's
here,
right.
This whiskey.
It's for everybody it serves. We all serve a community.
How
All
was that?
patriots.
How was that first barrel that you guys bought? Was that an exciting time that you guys are putting all this together? And was it hard to sell those first bottles?
Yeah, it really wasn't. And we'll let Harold jump in too. But we made our first batch was about 1,500 cases. Because you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. Where are you going to sell it? How are you going to sell it? But we were fortunate enough to get national distribution with 2 major distributors pretty quick, even though we were only going to go in a couple of markets to test it out, kind of a proof of concept and make what changes we have to. Because to be honest, I mean, you could taste this on the shelf and it's not going to compare to any other bourbon. So we weren't quite sure what the consumers would say about this bourbon. So you don't want to make too much. And we knew we wanted to make a blend when we were working with Steve. 4 grain in a barrel as a 4 grain mash is a little different than taking 2 different sets of barrels and blending that together to come up with a particular mash. For us, in our experience and working with some other masters, you get a different mouthfeel. It's a different yummy feel when you combine those 2 together. So now that we're on a roll, we've been fortunate enough to win some gold medals and double golds, and we took a silver in San Francisco. Of among 400 bourbons, we took a silver. So now we're getting feedback, right, Big Chief? People are telling us we like what we're tasting, and so you know yourself in Texas, there's only one Tito's.
That's
There's
the
only one
God's honest truth
Tito's
right there.
So we don't feel the need right now to come out with a bunch of different expressions. We do come out with some LTOs, but right now we're pretty happy with our founders, and I think we'll keep pushing forward on this until Harold says time for something new.
The only place we knew we weren't going to sell it was Facebook, apparently.
Now, what about in Class 6? Are you guys in Class 6 stores across the nation, across the world?
You take
Harold,
this one,
jump in
Harold.
there.
Well, we're in the NEX. NEX, all of these processes are, you have to walk it out, right? Fortunately for us, Rick had some connections up in Richmond, politicians. They came through for us, and I think we went into Virginia initially to try to get into ABC stores, right? But back on the NEX took us in, and they put us in their top 5 stores, kind of like a test. So we went into those top 5 stores. I think they were 10 cases. They accepted 10 cases to each location. And you probably know this, Chief, as one went into Oceana Air Station, Norfolk Naval Station, which is number 1 selling a store. And then it went to Bethesda, Maryland, Jacksonville, Florida, and then Pensacola. So what we did is we directly went to the stores, made the relationships with the managers, and went in and did several tastings and sold them out. So when we sold those out, those 10 cases, that triggered a reorder. So they brought them in, right? So now the NEX, through the confidence of our pull-through and our velocity, now is reordering, and then they expanded us to about, what, Mike, 11 to 13 stores?
Almost 15 right now.
Yep. And then now we're walk the dog with AFES, Air Force and Army Exchange, and we're just standing by for them to trigger an order to put us in about 90 plus stores across the United States, plus Asia, and over in UK and Europe. So now we can say really officially, I hope it to happen within the next 30 days or so, that we're international at that point. But AAFES is going to really put a lot of wind in our sails to help us gain the recognition and brand awareness throughout the military package stores. So we're very excited about that.
Well, I'm sure all of our listeners out there that are either prior service, you're a veteran, you're a retired veteran, you got that card where you can go on base and pick up a bottle of this. You're going to want to go out there and get a bottle of Four Branches Bourbon to honor your service with, honor those fallen shipmates. And I want to raise my glass again. This past week, 4 soldiers lost their lives over in Lithuania in a training accident. Our prayers and thoughts go out to their families in this difficult time, but they gave it all over there, really on the front line right now that people don't even know about. That's what they're doing there. So cheers to those 4 soldiers.
Yeah, prayers up.
Yeah, Chief, that one got me. My son was a tanker. He was in the 1st Armored Division, and spent a couple years in Iraq during the war. And just he had some close calls in those tanks. Those tanks can go, if they go below surface in water, and they can't move it out, man, it's a bad situation.
Yeah, when I was in the Army, we were offloading some A1 Abrams off a ramp in Kuwait back a long time ago, now 34 years ago, actually. And one of the A1 Abrams went off the landing craft ramp into the water. And luckily, that soldier that was driving that A1 Abrams they had the hatch open and was able to come out of there. Otherwise, more than likely, I would say that soldier would have drowned that day.
So, Chief, you probably know more about this, but so the Abrams or any tank, I guess, they're not watertight. When they close all the hatches, you cannot.
I don't think they are watertight. I don't think there's a way to make them watertight, especially because they have that turbine in them.
And they're so heavy.
Yeah, they are just they are heavy. In that I think it's a Mike 88 Alpha 2. I think it was 63 tons is that's how heavy it was, and it drove into a bog and over there in Lithuania, and they were just training. Training accidents happen. You rarely hear about them. And you rarely hear about that many people losing their life and stuff. But it's a sad thing. I don't want to be on a downer on this episode. But I also want to pay tribute to those guys that lost their lives and stuff. And, like I said, prayers to their families and stuff. Back to your guys' whiskey. So are you guys in all 50 states right now? Or are you just hitting certain states?
We're in 7 markets, and that's where we're selling in restaurants and bars and places like that. So we're in Tennessee, Kentucky, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, Florida, and I live in Arizona now, so we opened up out here on the West Coast with Arizona. So those are the 7 markets, but as of a couple of weeks ago, we can now ship to 41 states.
And who do people go through? How do they get your whiskey? Who do they go through to get it?
Easiest is go to fourbranches.com, FOUR branches.com, and we have a relationship with our direct-to-consumer shipper. So when you select that bottle and go to checkout, you're going to our direct-to-consumer partner that checks it out for us, and they handle all that. But no, we probably half of our sales, Chief, half of our sales are to DTC, to people that are out there. Because to your point, there's a lot of veterans live in a lot of states, right? So they're ordering in just about every single state. And, we ship, I think if you order 3 bottles or more, shipping's included, it's free. It's about the same as
3 or more free shipping.
And, bottle gets to you anywhere between 3 to 8 days on average. So it's not bad. But no, it's really been able to help us, to your point. If we were only in 6 or 7 states or 3 states, you're missing the other, 45 states or so. So being able to ship to consumers, via, FedEx and UPS really helps us and brands like us that are small, right? Because we're not a Jack, we're not a big Brown Foreman or Diageo, so we're not in every state. So this really helps us to do that. we ship quite a bit to Texas, where you are.
There's a lot of veterans here because we don't have those state taxes. And if
Exactly.
you're 100% disabled, you don't pay property taxes. So it's kind of like a double whammy here in the state of Texas. Get a good discount on your whiskey because most of the people here at the liquor stores give you a discount, 10%, and
Yep.
it is a nice deal and stuff. You guys brought up Barstown Bourbon Company and their CEO, Mark Irwin. Give a big shout out to him. He's an operator, a special forces guy. I believe that Mark was one of my students back in the day when I was in the Army down in Panama, which was just a cool thing to run into somebody from a long, long time ago and stuff. But Harold, I'm kind of I'm wondering. You're a SEAL, retired Master Chief, a true operator. Usually the SEALs you don't usually see the enlisted folks. You always get to hear about the officers and stuff. But have you got the entire SEAL community to embrace this?
Well, initially, here in Virginia, I've actually signed a lot of bottles and signed a case for a friend of mine who works inside the fence line at, Dev Group. And he took the case over and put a bottle that I signed, Harold Dog, my nickname was Dog, my last name's Underdown, so Underdog. So Dog, and I signed those bottles. He put them on all the squadrons bars, right? So those guys have a really nice bar at the command, and so he placed them, strategically. And we've got a local store here right up the road that doesn't. But most of the SEALs go to Oceana or Little Creek to pick up their bottles because of better pricing. So they do that. But oh yeah, I've tried all the avenues, and my middle son, Jake, he's at SEAL Team 2. So of course he's he does a little bit of marketing for us, but yeah, it's just slow. It's just one of those slow things of getting it in there, and we're working on some different ideas to try to drop off a resupply load to certain SEAL teams and units, but that's TBD right now. That's a project that I'm working on, and it's going to be awesome when it hits. But we're looking forward to that and bringing in those special operators, the SEALs, and Chief, we talk about the military as far as customer base, but we really kind of looking off the bow. We're wanting all patriots to get in, to be inside our tribe of Four Branches Bourbon. I've got a lot of friends, and I know you do, outside of our military branches, and they're supporting us. They're coming forward, and I get phone calls. I got a phone call from Richard, my wine master out in Montana, and he goes, "Hey, guess what?" And I go, "What?" He said, "I just went to Kalispell. I'm in Kalispell doing some shopping, and the local Montana ABC store has Four Branches." Why? Because he went in there and told the story and said, "I want some Four Branches bourbon." The guy did a special order, SPO, and got a case or 2 cases. So it's in Kalispell, Montana. But it takes that, right, Chief? We got to utilize our full networks, not just my military Navy SEAL connections, Rick's U.S. Marine VMI, his agency networks, and Mike. Mike's got a Rolodex that would blow your mind. So all of those, and RJ as well. So all of our experiences through the military, and now being I retired in 2015. So now I've been in the civilian sector for over, a decade. And it's just all of that combination of people that we've connected with, on a serious level, because we're true people, right? And it helps because they want to support this. They heard the story, they love the story, they love our juice, and they're coming in. They're coming in the tent to enjoy Four Branches bourbon.
Well, that's what you want to do is build that community and stuff. Harold, I got to say, happy birthday. It was the Navy Chief's birthday. So happy birthday to the Navy Chiefs out there. That's always a big deal and stuff.
Oh, heck yeah. Chiefs mess.
Yes, sir. Yep. The Chiefs mess is definitely across the country. Right now is CCTI season for Coast Guard Chiefs, and I just had 2 young Chiefs come in my office today. And as an old retired Chief, it's always nice to get those young Chiefs that just pinned on those anchors to come see you and get some words of wisdom from you.
Do you guys do the same process that we do in the Navy as far as chief initiation?
We do.
That's something else, isn't it?
So all their charge books are different and their hat box are different. Like my hat box is totally different than everybody else's. But what I tell those young Chiefs is your hat box, it has to be for you, and it has to represent who you are. Because they'll come to my office and like, oh my God, look at that thing, and I'm like, well, I could work with wood, and I wanted to represent me. It does represent me. But when they walk into my office, there's no doubt in their mind that I'm a chief. Even though I'm a civilian, they still understand I'm a chief. And I try to, with age does come wisdom, and impart that wisdom on them, and tell them it's a 24/7, 365 day a year job for sailors, for coasties, for airmen, even your senior NCOs. Be on call. So when your subordinate does get in a little trouble, or they've had a little bit too much to drink and they need that ride home, even though I got to say these young folks today have a lot easier than all 4 of us did. There was no Uber or Lyft back in the day. No, there was none of that stuff. Yeah. So it was tough, but be that chief for those young folks and make sure that they're making the right decisions and getting home safe. Well, gentlemen, we're right up against the first half. I'm going to finish off this glass right here, and then I'm going to get into that Black Ops on the second half, and we'll talk about those barrel picks, those special barrels that you guys do, and then we'll talk about the future of Four Branches Bourbon and where you guys are going to take this. It sounds like you're going to take it around the world for all those service members out there that sometimes just need something a little extra to take that edge off. Listeners, you stick with us, and we'll be right back. Seldom Seen Farm, bringing bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup goodness from everything from pancakes to whiskey cocktails. Seldom Seen Farm in Northern Ohio has something magical for your whiskey cocktails instead of that old basic simple syrup. Kevin Holy and his family are harvesting the sap from over their 5,000 maple trees and turning it into something delicious, maple syrup. He then goes a step further by aging in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months. That's right, bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup. Shh, don't tell Miss Viv, but I love to pour it over my butter pecan ice cream. Visit them at seldomseenmaple.com. All right, listeners, we are back for the second half, and I'm with these 3 jokers from Four Branches Bourbon. I've got Rick, I've got Mike, and I've got Harold with us. So we got the Air Force, we got the Marine Corps, and of course, we got a Master Chief from the Navy. Not just the Navy, but a Navy SEAL. Gentlemen, on the second half here, I poured some of your guys' Black Ops rum cast finish. And Harold, I would just take a gander that this is probably coming from your mind right here. Am I correct?
Well, I would like to take credit for that, but really we kind of paid tribute to one of our brand ambassadors, Rick Franco, who was a retired CIA, and but his Cuban roots, we kind of did the rum for him, and we paired that or bundled it with a book that Rick wrote, Black Ops. So we named it Black Ops, and it was very successful, very good, 9-year-old juice, 21 rye that we finished in 4 Caribbean rum barrels, and it's beautiful. So 9 years old, 100 proof, good to go.
This brings out that Chief Bosun made me. I just want to cuss like a dirty old sailor for some reason while I'm drinking this.
Like pirates of the Caribbean.
I get fired up. This might not be good right here, gentlemen.
I gotta say,
we
knew it was pretty good, but we've got a few restaurants here in Phoenix that carries it, some high-end restaurants, and they have it on the bar. and we were there a couple of nights ago actually at the steakhouse, and I poured. They have our Founders blend too, so I poured that and had it with my steak, and I gotta say, I think they're Black Ops. They sell it for like $46 a pour. It's crazy.
Well, they should. They can't get it anymore.
It's crazy. Yeah,
You can't get it anymore.
Yeah, so it's a rare. So anyway, I went ahead and because I wanted to try it again. I haven't had any in probably about 2 or 3 months, and so they sent it to me. And I always drink it neat, and it sat for about probably 20 minutes on the table before I had it. And I gotta say, when I was sipping it after I finished my meal, I had forgotten how good that is. It is really, the nose on it is incredible. That taste, even though our Founders blend is really a soft feel, it may be the Caribbean rum cask that's doing it, but it's got that soft feel on the mouth. You got that little bit of sort of that maple kind of hint to it as well. But at that 100 proof, man, it's a sexy drink, that's for sure.
I can almost taste that salt air in it right here. And Harold, you'd know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about salt air. It's like in our blood. You've been around the ocean long enough. I was a heavy weather coxswain up in Maine, and it was like you lived in the salt. You could taste it. You could lick your lip and be like, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just something about it, and I can taste that salt in this right here, that salt air, that Caribbean, like you say, Caribbean rum. They're aging in that salt air and stuff. You go anywhere in a Caribbean island, and if there's a metal fence or something, you'll see it rusting and stuff. So that salt is just lingered in there, and it has to mingle with those barrels just a little bit, and then infuse in this whiskey. Man, it's delicious. I love it.
It is awesome.
It's good with the cigar too, Chief.
Now, how often do you guys do these like special barrels like this?
Once a year right now.
Yeah.
So last year was the Black Ops. We have one coming out now. We'll go ahead and tease it because I think we released this to anybody right now, so we'll tease it on your podcast. This year is the 250th anniversary of the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, so we have a pretty special one coming out this year in honor of those individuals. So it's a Rick, is it 9 or 10 year?
It's another 9 year.
9. Yep.
It's fantastic. I get the job of being the taster. I get all the samples, or most of them. They don't last long around here, Chief. I'm supposed to save it for these guys to try it. I'm like, shit, guys. Sorry, bottle's empty. It was good. You'll enjoy it. Trust me.
So what is that one? Is it just going to be a 9 year, or is that going to be finished in something?
9 years straight.
9 years straight, Kentucky straight bourbon.
Kentucky straight bourbon, and
do you guys exclusively work with Bardstown Bourbon Company, or are you working with other people too?
We work exclusively for bottling, blending, all of our chemistry lab and stuff like that. But when it comes to barrels, we've laid down 500 new barrels at Bardstown. So we have our own mash bill laid down at Bardstown. But I think, Chief, that's one of the unique things about sort of not, we're not a distillery. We don't own a distillery. And I think it kind of lends to our story, right? I mean, we've got some good folks that we've served with. Harold and I have North Carolina roots. Rick's got that Louisiana roots in it. He's got a Cajun in him. RJ's got Vegas and West Virginia roots. And so that's the one thing about the military. I mean, Colorado, you mentioned 10th Mountain. Those guys are making some good stuff out there. And you got some good Texas bourbon. So we're kind of agnostic. We're just looking at quality. Bardstown will tell you, we're one of the few that come in every single time and taste it when we blend it, before it goes in that bottle. I can promise you, I can swear to you, Rick and I and the guys, we've tasted it before it goes in that bottle. Last thing I want to do is sit at a bar and buy a drink for somebody left or right of me, and then I drink it and go, that wasn't what I thought it was. I don't want to do that.
We make sure it's right. It has to be right. There's no room for error.
Swamp juice.
Yeah, to your point, Chief, we've taken some other, again, we explore barrels. Our very first gentleman that we reached out to before we got into this industry, he's the largest bourbon broker in the world. over 300,000 barrels he has access to. So we've been very blessed to be able to have our pick and be able to go into some of the rick houses and see some really cool stuff. And being able to taste that, and whether it's a straight that we might go with, or we want to do a blend or a finish. We're now working with a new master distiller behind the scenes to help us do some really cool stuff. He's got about 40 years of industry experience. So, you know yourself, I mean, we've got a lot of experience drinking this stuff, but when it comes to making it, blending it, you know, my uncle was he ran moonshine. He was one of those guys driving the back streets of the hill countries of Tennessee, running this stuff behind the scenes. But you know, my pappy wasn't a distiller, and you know, neither was Harold or Rick. So you go out there and you find the best people in the industry that's been doing this for a long time, and you lean into their knowledge, their experience, and their past, and that's kind of what we did and what we're still doing.
Now, does the Black Ops and with this 250th birthday bourbon that you got, I guess you couldn't call it birthday bourbon for old Forester, have a problem with that, but this 250th anniversary bourbon, let's call it that. Is it going to have special labels made up, or is it just going to have your guys' standard Four Branches Bourbon label on it?
I'll let Rick go for it, Rick.
You know, we won't want to give, you know, like a classified project. We're not going to give too much away. But the big four will be on there. It's always going to be on our LTOs. The colors could be different. Some of the iconology on the bottle will be different, and the back label will have a story in honor. So it's sharp. I can tell you right now, Chief. It's a sharp. It may be my new favorite one from the three labels that we have.
I might have to get a couple bottles of that because my little brother. I've just been thinking about this because there's another brand out there that is owned by an active duty Marine, and he will have a 250 bottle coming out. He always has the year of the Marine Corps on his bottles, but I might have to get a couple of your guys' bottles just for me and my brother to honor my Army service and his Marine Corps service. And maybe one day I can get you guys to make a Big Chief, maybe a Texas whiskey for the Coast Guard guys out there that I'm sure they would eat it up. You know, that might be something wonderful right there. I'm really digging this. That salt air, that rum cast finish, it gives that little sweetness. Maybe that maple you were talking about. I get a little horehound candy in this, taken back to my country roots there.
Texas roots, yeah.
That sassafras tea that I grew up on. You're not supposed to drink that anymore because it has arsenic in it, but who gives a shit? That's why I'm not allergic to anything, is because of eating dirt and drinking sassafras tea, I think. So what's some other future expressions that you guys have been thinking about or dreaming up?
Yeah, a lot of it, to Rick's point, I hate to say that, we're kind of running that classified. You get four guys that's working special operations or CIA for 110 combined years, you're shy about telling secrets, right?
I got a security clearance. Come on.
Well, Mike, I think we should talk about the Nick factor. You know, one of our, Nick is our sales guy, but we got this great dugout of people that help us with this. And he just keeps telling us, hey, don't get too crazy. Don't get over your skis on trying to come up with a second SKU or something fancy. You know, our LTOs are hitting the mark. But for us, I think it's drilling down in the markets that we're in and continue to build the Four Branches Bourbon. The Founders Blend is our primary SKU. So we got a lot of work to do to really, get out there and bring people into the tent to support Four Branches Bourbon, because it is such a good tasting bourbon. So, but yeah, we talk about that all the time about expansion. We want to go to Texas. We want to go to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. And we got people, of course, with the reins, pulling the reins back, saying, hey, hold your go, right? Slow. And we're just like, go. But, it takes a lot of money to activate into these states. because, each state is different, right? So you have controlled states, and then you have states that are, like Florida. Florida is kind of like a hybrid state, which they have ABC stores, but they have a lot of private owned liquor stores as well. So we've got the people that really control the reins on us and go, hey, just we don't want to be an inch deep and a mile wide. We want to start, penetrating the markets that we're in: Florida, Virginia, DC, Maryland, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arizona. We got a lot of work to do. So how do we build that brand? It has to be, our footings, our foundation has to be strong.
Well, that's all I always tell everybody. People ask me advice all the time. They're like, man, you've been in a lot of distilleries. You've seen a lot of marketing schemes, and you've seen people fail, and you've seen people succeed in your podcast. And I'm like, yes, I have. And they're like, what would be your one piece of advice? And I always say, win your backyard, win your neighborhood, win your city, win your region, and then win your state. The only caveats to that I would be saying is California, Texas, Florida, and New York. Those states could drink you dry. So those are different animals, but there's regions inside those. But win your market first, and I think you guys are right on spot. Releasing once a year a special, or maybe two. It depends on what you're doing. But keep it to that one. That one bottle is very, very wise. I do got a question for each of you, and I used to ask this all the time on my old show, but you're old like me, so it might be hard to remember. But do each of you remember that first sip of whiskey that you took in your life?
Yeah, I think mine was. It wasn't bourbon. It was whiskey. It was Scotch. I used to fix my dad Johnny Walker Black. Right, that's what he liked. Johnny Walker Black on the rocks, 3 fingers, the pour. I mean, look, growing up in South Louisiana, it's a drinking culture, right? Back when I was growing up, you could drive at 15, get your license at 15, you could drink at 18, right? So senior in high school, I'm in the bar shooting pool, throwing darts, having beers before the next day's English test or whatever we were having at the time. So I think I was, I don't know, I had to probably be around 15 or so. Poured Dad a drink. I was like, what is this stuff? Let me take a nip of it and see if it's any good.
I bet that first sip wasn't good.
I was like, how does he drink this shit?
That's probably why he had hair on his chest.
Yeah. But then but then as you get older, it's like you acquire palate, right? You're like, okay.
Yeah. Mike, what about you?
I think bourbon, if we stay on the bourbon topic, it's an interesting one, right? Because I grew up in East Tennessee, the hills of Tennessee. And so Jack was everywhere. But my first bourbon, I think, would have been Jim Beam when I was in Germany. I was just thinking about that the other day. I had a similar experience like Rick with my dad. We shared a glass together when he came over to Germany. But my first bourbon would have been at my E4 promotion. It's kind of funny that you said that. I was just thinking about that. So I was promoted to sergeant when I was in Germany, and this guy brought a bottle of Jim Beam, and we sat around and toasted to the promotion. And I think that might have been my first memory experience with a bourbon. And of course, that would have been about nearly 40 years ago. Yeah, that might have been my first experience when I pinned on E4 Sergeant.
Master Chief, what about you?
Well, I'm going to give you two different scenarios. One scenario is I remember I had some Red Man, tobacco in my back pocket, and my dad said, "Well, Harold, you going to just walk around and playing baseball, right?" He said, "I've never seen you chew that tobacco." So I got a big old wad out, shoved it in my mouth, and I was out on a lawn chair in the yard, and all of a sudden I started seeing 2 moons. So that kind of broke me for chewing tobacco, right? Broke me. Had the same experience with Jack Daniels down at Myrtle Beach when I was on my, graduating high school. Had a little bit too much of Jack Daniels, and it's the same thing. Broke me. So I couldn't smell it. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to do anything. And it took me years and years and years, probably until I met Rick down in the Bahamas, I could actually taste and could understand the process and really start to enjoy the taste of bourbon. But for the longest time, I couldn't look at it. So, it just kind of shows you got to be careful, and but now in this process that we're in, and it is a process to put white dog, white lightning, it looks like when it comes down out of the steel, and it goes into those barrels, and it sits there for 4+ years, and you get the taste of flavors of that liquid penetrating those white oak saves, and it's really quite remarkable how that juice comes out of that barrel.
It doesn't have to be our age, right? But I do think bourbon, maybe whiskey in general, definitely Scotch, but bourbon for sure. There's an appreciation that comes with it, and it just takes a few years of life to really understand what it took to go into that barrel, and then the stories that come out of it, right? I mean, I think for the four of us, that's the most fun part, is when we do tastings and hang out with guys like yourself and we have a sip. We're not sitting here throwing back. This is not my 17th shot of tequila. I'm sipping, I'm remembering things that you're asking me questions about. I'm taking in that aroma, that nose, and I'm thinking about the wood that was these barrels was crafted with, and maybe what char was that, and where do these grains come from. And it is really, as we say, bourbon is a reflective spirit. It causes you to think back, and I think that's why we gravitated to it. I'm glad Rick, chose, we could have chose a whiskey or something else, but the bourbon really, I think the bourbon matches our personalities to kind of take it slow, enjoy something that is really quality. And we said this before, Chief, and we appreciate taking the opportunity to honor some people along the way here. But that's what it's for. If we're going to raise a toast to somebody that's fallen, pardon my French, but it can't be shit. It's got to be good bourbon. And it just means that's important to us. And veterans deserve a premium bourbon. We're not cheap bourbon. Probably never going to be cheap bourbon. But we think our veterans, those who serve, deserve quality. And that's who we are.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit a nail on the head, but it's America's native spirit.
That's right.
It's not made anywhere else. It's made in the United States. So what better spirit to honor those fallen comrades, those service members, those brothers and sisters that gave it all, than with a bourbon, America's native spirit. It's something beautiful, that age and that maturation, those years it takes to move in and out of the wood. When you first enter the service, you're kind of like that young white dog whiskey.
You are.
That's a good analogy right there.
But after 20-something years, you're aged, you're weathered,
you're charred.
You're salty.
Yeah.
Salty.
You're that premium spirit.
Yeah, and you can appreciate life a little better. So it does take some time. One of my whiskeys I drank over in Korea was 10 High, and I would not drink 10 High today. I might cook with it, but I'm not going to drink it. But that's what I could afford. I was inexperienced with whiskey, and then I started coming of age and buying some nicer bottles or being gifted nicer bottles, and starting to reflect on life and what I was missing out on, being carefree and wild and crazy, and settled down a little bit. Then you put on those anchors, you become senior, and you do appreciate life a lot more. You appreciate conversations with fellow veterans like yourselves a lot more. You realize that you do got brothers and sisters out there that have chewed that same dirt, have swam that same ocean, have been in the thick of the fight, and it's always nice to come together and reflect on the past.
Chief, we appreciate your service, not only in the Army but the Coast Guard. I'll leave you with this too. Every time the four of us get together, even though we served in the 4 different branches, every time we get together as founders, our very first toast every time is to the Coast Guard. Every
Wow.
time.
I don't.
So
I don't,
that's something to us.
I don't know about that. Come on now.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
We do that. It's important to us. I lived in Abu Dhabi in the UAE for a couple of years, and probably half of my office was Coast Guard because we were building the Emirati Coast Guard. So we had a lot of coasties over there. I have never had more fun in my life.
Well,
The Coast
coasties
Guard
do like to
guys,
have some
Yeah.
fun.
dude, they love to have some fun, but just good people, and we're still very tight and connected today. But yeah, there was no disrespect just because the Coast Guard wasn't mentioned. Like Rick said, it's just we didn't serve in it, and we wanted to have a natural relationship with it. But every time we come together, our very first toast is to the Coast Guard, and
Well,
we got
I
some
appreciate
things
that.
working for the Coast Guard, some special LTOs we're going to be working on in the future for those.
Yeah, and we have a cocktail to a Coast Guard, the Semper Paratus.
Well, I love that. I'll have to.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah.
dig that up off your
Go-
guys' site and stuff.
Go on the site. We got the
Mhm.
Semper Paratus in honor.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that real fast before we finish up. So, what's your guys' website?
Four Branches, so www.4branches.com.
And what about on social media? Where can people go on social media to find you guys?
Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Man,
If
what
you
a
go to
business-
YouTube,
business
if you
move.
go to
YouTube
YouTube.
also. Yep, YouTube also.
YouTube. On
Yeah,
YouTube.
we have a YouTube channel. Probably there's
Channel.
about, God, I didn't even realize this the other day, Rick. We got about 40 or 50 videos on there. So we have our own channel at YouTube, Four Branches. And last year 2 years ago, we were blessed to have Fox News had us on live, and that was a great opportunity. That was almost literally the first week we launched, and thanks to Fox for kind of kicking us off there. Last year we were on NBC Today show. Another great opportunity. The guys treat us really well. They brought us to Bardstown and did a full day of filming. I mean, the expense they put into it, and then come up with a great 5-minute video about our background and played it. And we had some great recognition by that. So we're starting to get a lot of local and national TV recognition for the brand and stuff like that. So a lot of those videos are on YouTube, and we post about it on our social media. And you hit the nail on the head earlier, Chief. We may be a bourbon first, but closely behind it is we're a community. We're a community of like-minded individuals. You talked about your wife. It's sort of been in the military for 60 some odd years, being a daughter and then a wife. And, Harold talks about it quite often. It's usually our spouses and our kids that suffer the most, and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. I could go into all kinds of stories about mine as well, and I know Rick could as well. So it's a community, and we hope everybody joins the community. And if you don't drink, don't start. Sober, stay sober. But you can pull up a chair at our table and tell a story anytime.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for not only sharing your whiskey with me, but your stories, your knowledge, and your friendship. I really appreciate you taking this ride on the whiskey trip. Well, listeners, you know where you can find me. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all them places. On YouTube now. Check out my videos on there. I think I got 8 or 9. I'm going to have some more. My niece, Mackenzie Gray, she's doing my videos for me. Speaking of military brat. But go over there to my stuff and check it out. Follow me on all those platforms. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're listening to me, listen to Mark and Matt on the Bourbon Life. If you like what they're doing and like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave us that 5-star review. Leave us some comments on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Those comments, those 5-star reviews get great whiskey in my hands, like this Four Branches Bourbon. Gets great guests on my show, like Mike, Rick, and Harold. I love it. I love to have great guests on here. If you have a guest in your backyard, a distillery in your backyard, and you want them to take a ride on a whiskey trip, tell them to email me, mike@thewhiskeytrip.com. Very easy email to get to. I got some big shows coming up. I hope you keep listening. I really do appreciate it. You make those comments on Apple Podcasts, put them over on my Facebook page, The Whiskey Trip, 53. My goal was to get to 100 by the end of the year, listeners. Come on now. I know you can do it. I know we can get there to 100 reviews. So I really appreciate it. This is Old Big Chief, and thanks for taking this ride with me.